Something that you and I talked about just moments ago is like the teacher of death. It tells us that we're not promised tomorrow, but it doesn't ask us to speed up our process and to get it all done in a moment's time. It centers us into the now. I think if we try to speed up and get everything done right away, it means we're chasing death and we're trying to get to the end. But if we're completely nonchalant and doing absolutely nothing and not fearing death in a healthy way, there's not much progress. So it's this balance that's different for everyone.
When I asked Ze'Lee about her name, she told me it comes from the realm of imagination conjured by her mom. It has no meaning, therefore can mean everything, nothing, or anything she wants in the moment. Her mom wanted her to have a unique name because she knew that Ze'Lee would be unique. And indeed, she is. I'm Robin Nisbet, and this is the Any Place podcast. I hope you enjoy this conversation titled, I Am People.
We're by the beautiful river, nice and full, flowing. The hills are alive with the sound of music. I was listening to that in the rain on my way to my hike in Santa Barbara, Rattlesnake Trail, and I was crying, just like listening to her voice, the vibrato in her voice, and I was like, wow, this is the vibration of the mountains. And they are alive with the sound of music. And I just cried like a baby. And the nostalgia aspect of it, I think, also just gets you there.
Yeah.
Being a kid again.
Yeah.
You know? Being authentic in your feelings is a very childlike place to be. It's somewhere I always want to be. Yeah.
What do you think gets in the way of people being authentic in their feelings?
Adulting. Definitely. I mean, life experience and the perspective of life experience, because someone can have a life experience and be incredibly wonderful and childlike. Someone else can have the same life experience, and with a different perspective, you're now stuck perceiving that trauma, not working with it, honoring it, allowing it to go through you instead of stay in you, or avoiding it entirely and losing and not gaining the lesson. The lessons are important for growth, and it's never linear. So you can still be childlike and takes a couple lessons and then eventually you get it. Or you could learn that lesson and have to relearn it because we forget. I find it's never just like, oh, you learned this lesson and now you've graduated to the next thing and you'll never have to worry about that again because it's learned. Like, learning is ongoing.
Completely. There's some things that I've been noticing that I've been moving through lately that I'm like, oh, and here's this one again. But I'm noticing there's just a little bit more awareness, a little bit more embodiment around it. I have a little bit more like self-care embodiment practices to where I can move with it in a different way.
Yes. Yes. That's where creativity comes into play. I feel like this last week I relearned that, and this is something I've always known conceptually, but I've really relearned that love is always a choice, always something you can lean into, but it doesn't always show up the same. So if that one person is still frustrating you, or that one person is still in their trauma and blaming you, or whatever the situation could be, and you think that you've tried and tried and tried to lean into love with it, there's another way still to lean into love, and it could be completely creative and something you'd never think. Like the most wacky, zany thing. Like, I don't know, connecting on juggling. Like, you can make it circusy. You can make it it could be anything, or it could even just be taking a moment to look into their eyes and listen to them. Like, love is always an option, and to love the world and all of its brokenness is such a difficult thing to do that it requires creativity to fill all the gaps, to fill all the cracks, because love and how we conceptualized it's so limited. So it needs to be creative and evolving so that it can reach and radiate continuously. It's not meant to be in a box.
When I met you, you were catering this wedding, right? And we just started talking, and I was so struck by your presence. I just learned that you're 25. Maybe you told me when we met, but I mean, you're obviously in a young body, but such an old soul. I was impressed upon by just your presence and your wisdom and your understanding, and then you shared with me some of the experiences that you've had in your lifetime, and so many experiences that you've inhabited in your body in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
One of my questions for you is why is play important?
Yes. Man, there's so many reasons. When I was first engaging with the word play, I was doing collaborative art at a jazz club in Ventura called The Grape. And I was bringing art supplies and pretty much creating what I like to say non-serious art, especially to the artists who say that they're not artists. If I bring up non-seriousness, that really helped for them to, set aside their desire to be something that they don't think they are, even though they are, and to just be it, because it doesn't have to be judged. And I realized that play is a really nice balance between non-seriousness and learning, which you learn through challenge. So it sounds to me more like centeredness. So like play for children, when we observe children playing, they're running around and they are not serious. It is super fun, but at the same time, they are learning how to hit the ball, how to run around their friends, or they've fallen and hurting themselves, but they're in a playful state still. Sometimes it really hurts, but they get back up at some point and they keep playing. The play doesn't stop, but the learning still happens. And I think as adults, we still do that, but sometimes the pain is elongated because it becomes more emotional and personal. Play kind of gets us out of that personal state. Looking at play from a neurological perspective is it literally allows for neuroplasticity to engage, which in turn helps with mending the brain where there may be trauma. As we get older, those things stay with us longer. Play is really important to let those things go and to remember our state of origin and the purity of who we are. Play is connective. Play is fun. Most importantly, life is not about having the hardest time and being the wisest. It's about having the most fun, in my opinion, with everything I have been through. I couldn't have gone through it without fun. So play is super important. It makes it so that the age gap no longer matters. It makes it so that the monetary gap that we might see ourselves in classes no longer matters. Play is a unifying principle. It's a unifying fabric that every person deserves and needs to have in their life to have a good life.
It seems like you're very knowledgeable about trauma and the facets of trauma and the effects of trauma. And is that something that you have studied, whether like formally or just on a personal kind of research, more personal research place?
Yeah, I would say both. I honor the fact that my understanding of trauma from a scholastic perspective is limited because I technically don't have any degrees. And I listen very intently to people who do have degrees and speak on these things. We are in the era of information and technology, so it's really easy to gain access to real-time research of what's happening in the science realm or the realm of psychology without having a degree per se. So we have access to the knowledge. So I don't necessarily have anything behind me certificate-wise to support what I'm saying, and I understand that, and I think that's really important. That's an important facet of scholastic knowledge. But when you're a human being, as hopefully everyone who's listening is, or if not, hey, what's up, non-humans out there? When you're a human being and you're engaged with trauma, you are living what it means to be a human. I believe it's almost impossible for humans to not have some form of engagement with trauma, or incredibly rare, and I've never met them personally, and I personally have never really read about them. So again, trauma, like play, is a unifying principle and important so that the play feels good. You can make it very black and white, dichotomy-esque, but something I've learned recently is darkness, quote unquote, and put quotes around it because there's such a negative connotation, and if anything, I think there's something so beautiful about that word. That is a connective aspect of humanity that allows us to connect. It's important for connection. Connection is the important part, not staying away from trauma or only engaging in play, or, neither. The important part is the connection. So I know about trauma, and I know how it works in my body and in the human brain through my interest in neurology, through my interest in psychology, my love for people, my curiosity. It's just curiosity, love, and interest that has guided me to these understandings. And I have a lot of friends over the age of 40 and 50 and 60 and 70. Like, I have a lot of friends, people who I see as my peers who are not in my numerical range of age, but they're still my friends. And the wisdom that they carry of life experience, it helps to inform me in the now, even though I don't have that experience quite yet. So I'm a seeker. I'm always looking. I'm always taking in information. Some things stick, some things don't. Sometimes I forget, sometimes I completely remember. But yeah, in my own personal life, I've had many traumas and many dark nights of the soul. And I believe in purpose. I believe in working through that because I want goodness, I will chase after goodness for myself. Happiness, everyone wants to be happy. Trauma is inevitable. How do you work with the trauma and still engage with happiness? I think you can be just as happy while traumatized as you can while in play. I think it's possible.
Yeah.
Well, I do have a question.
Yes, please.
And obviously this is incredibly personal in your business, which was shared about, the death of someone that was close to you in your family. While there's that feeling of grief, do you have an understanding for yourself of the lesson that the grief is teaching you in this moment that you're sitting with?
Ooh, yes. I get to be around a lot of people I think who are very aware of death in a way of it's not a taboo topic, it's not a bad thing, it's a part of life and living. And the lesson that I'm with right now is how to love fully. And I've had a great love in my life, but I would like to know what it's like to be in a partnership that's really healthy and maybe span some time. And I think I have a lot of fear around it. And I'm kind of in this place of we've got to give that love everything we've got, because for me, at least, like, I don't know what else life is for. It's like just to love as deeply and truly as we can. And even if it's, you know, if it's with my friends that I really care about. And I'm kind of like I'm a little brat. Like I like to be alone a lot. I'm kind of like, I can be a grumpy person, and I'm not always like, I need a lot of alone time and quiet time, and like, I get annoyed with people really easily. But like, I also love really deeply, and I'm really loyal, and I will show up for the people that I love with everything that I've got.
Is the fear of loss?
I think that, gosh, what is it? Maybe it is fear of loss, because this person that I loved so much and who loved me so much, like we knew it was just going to be for a short period of time. And there was something even inside of it where we were grieving one another, because we knew that we couldn't stay together, and that it was just like a meeting of the paths so that we could do like what we needed to do. And so I think there is fear around like abandonment, and fear of like around feelings of safety. There's a lot of stuff around safety, because I've been in very toxic, abusive relationships in the past. And worthiness, like, am I worthy of the kind of love that I could imagine, that, you know, and also like to kind of undo some of the conditioning around like what we see in the media about this is what love looks like, and this is how it happens, and this is like the romantic thing, and it's really none of, like, I don't know, I'm like, that's not really that romantic. That's kind of awful or whatever. Like, I'm like, no, I just want real, steady, like almost like pragmatic love, but with some, you know, spice too, of course.
Oh yeah, keep it spicy, baby. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I really relate. One of the things, fear of neglect is one of the biggest life struggles that I have, and something that manifests itself in various ways. So I do relate. I think the fear of loss is one of the more crippling fears of my life. I've been in an abusive relationship, just one in my life, and I don't plan to be on another. And I'm very strong in that, because it was quite intense. And, you know, I stuck around for much longer than expected. I didn't expect myself to stick around for as long as I did. And in the same vein, a year later, I was in the healthiest relationship of my life with any other human I've ever been in. Completely in love. We're not together, you know. We have separated in love, and love has manifested itself to be, you know, a flower in the garden. Not something I had to cut out of my life, but something I can forever look upon and see bloom as this beautiful experience with someone that's a special, shared, sacred piece of my life. And for me, I think with that learning, that's helped me with my fear of neglect. Doesn't mean that the loss doesn't exist or that the feelings aren't there, but it allows for me to push forward in excitement for the ever-changing journey of life, where loss is inevitable, embracing the loss, embracing the grief, embracing death, becoming friends with it even. I've heard a lot of people say, death is not your friend, death is the worst, where there's this ideology that death is the scariest thing ever. And I disagree. I think it can be interesting. I think it can be fascinating. I think it can be overwhelming. Yes, all of those things. But I think it is so limiting and really strips you of life if you completely avoid and don't become one or friends with death. You lose life. You have to have both, just as you have to have grief and play, just as you have to have, trauma and good days. You can make it very binary in nature, left brain, right brain, but you need it all to have a full, whole life. Otherwise, you're losing sections of yourself entirely, and your potential. More than potentially, we're all going to die.
Right.
There's no potential for death. That just is. Just as there's no potential for life, it just is. But it's how you choose to perceive the life and live it that makes it magical or enjoyable or, sparkly, whimsical, or, really difficult and painful. I think it's also a blessing to be able to live in a space where it's easier to mentally get into that place of honoring life and appreciating life because of all that we have. Some people are living on survival mode for their entire lives, and that may be a different story where my philosophy may not apply, Yeah. And I still think that play for those people more than anyone is so important. Seeing, children in Gaza rap, play their guitars by the beach, seeing there still be play in what I would describe as one of the most horrific atrocities happening right now. Still seeing that, still seeing play be present. That's the hope for humanity. They are the masters. They're creating hope. That's mastery. And for, us as a culture in America to be in despair because we sit on our phones and eat well, more than well, it's just kind of like a disservice to basic understanding, in my opinion. But I don't want to cast judgment per se. I just want to speak to the fact that we could have it worse. And that it's important to honor where we are right now. I feel so good with the sun on my skin. I'm actually feeling more alive again, the sun being here, being outside, it feels warm. The birds are chirping, the river is flowing. This is the best temperature.
I know. The river bottom is a sacred place.
I'm excited to look back at this podcast and see how my ideas have stayed the same and or changed. It's so fascinating, just being in the now and recording what the now is, and then one day I may have a completely different idea, or may have developed on one of the ideas. I'm very excited about it.
Or you may be stunned by your wisdom in that moment. I noticed for myself, I can be so critical constantly. I mean, this is one of the things that I am in an ongoing practice with. And I think, if I did that 5 years ago, it's going to be terrible or whatever. And then I read the thing that I wrote, and I'm surprised sometimes by some kind of wisdom or scene that I had in that moment, because I have this idea that I'm getting better.
Right, with age.
Yeah.
So interesting. There's a lot coming up for me in that. So something my Auntie River talks about often is the wisdom. And then, she references the space at which the wisdom exists, the childlike wisdom, the teenage wisdom, the young adult wisdom, the mid-adult wisdom, then the crone wisdom. It all has wisdom. There is something so beautiful and so knowing in every phase. And I think you speaking to that is so big and so true. Yes, I agree. I agree. It's I like to look at people in that light. And it is important to look at yourself as well in that light. I look at people, I look at children with reverence. And I think that's why I connect with children so well. Because it's a look maybe they don't receive very often, that they're even new to, or they're like, you're kind of like my peer. I'm like, I am.
Yeah, totally.
Even though I'm a big kid, you know. And they may look up to me because of the years I've lived. I've survived this long. Yay, evolution, you know. But kids deserve to be looked at with reverence. I really believe that. And I think it's a disservice to treat or think of children as unintelligent when their intelligence is without maybe a certain level of vocabulary, but it's with embodiment.
Yes.
Which is so much more than vocabulary. I mean, people will bullshit you with your words, but they won't lie to you with your actions, you know, their actions. Children are just embodiments of truth, and that's so safe and much more fun and really important, in a lesson I think everyone should learn and try to reorient into, you know.
I completely agree.
Kids.
They're amazing.
They sure are.
One of the questions that I've consistently asked, it can be answered as poetically as you want, and it doesn't have to be all of the things. It can just be one thing or a few things that feel salient at this moment in your life. The question is, what do you practice?
I'd say I practice movement. I'm constantly chasing for some kind of movement that is good for me. So that could just generally be described as yoga. I believe yoga is centering with yourself and moving according to the needs of your body. And right now those needs are dance. I've been fire spinning lately.
What's fire spinning?
Fire spinning, yay! I wish I knew it more historically and culturally, but I know it as a fun circus practice. Essentially, you take props of various kinds. There's a lot of amazing props that people make, and they have wicks on them, and you douse them with fuel, as they say, and then you light it on fire and you dance with it. The beauty of that practice is becoming one with something so fierce and so unmanageable, but we're in a space and time where we can become one with it and almost control it. Not entirely, but dance with it and control ourselves around an uncontrollable force. To dance with an uncontrollable force is a very special thing to do. Something that we have done since the beginning of time, in my opinion, because we dance around the sun. Again, another unifying principle, sitting around fires. And this is one of my practices as well, to add on to this, is sitting around the fire and engaging in ceremony, engaging with indigenous practices around a fireplace. When you sit around a fire, you remind yourself that you are one with all, and that you are unified with everyone, because we're around the sun. We sit around a fire, always. There's no religion that can take you away from that reality of unity. Another thing that I've learned through this practice of engaging with the fire in this way is the earth's core is a fire, forever radiating love, movement, energy, however you want to describe that. We sit around that fire as well. We sit around multiple fires. I also believe our soul is fire. It's pure energy. That's what fire is. It's a connective force to all other people and the universe. That's what our soul is. That's what the web of life is. That's what these strings are that connect us with people. And we are vessels for the soul, the human body, and we are around that fire. Our human body is sitting physically around this centered energy within ourselves called our soul. Much maybe like finer in essence, like it's finer probably than atoms, because atoms are moving and they have their center and something's moving around its center, just as we are our own. Fire just reflects to me my heart. So I think that's the most important practice right now in my life. You're a dancer, right?
I'm a dancer.
Yes,
yeah.
I feel like you could speak to this very specifically. I want to hear your ideas around movement and dance.
Two of my teachers, Denai Ovakoga and Frida Kiparbe, they've influenced so much of how I am with the world, and also some of the questions that I ask in this podcast.
Yeah.
And they talk about the 8 biological pillars, and one of which is movement.
Yes.
It's essential for life. And I've been making these little YouTube videos, just doing some embodied practices and movement strategies. And I'm also keenly aware of when I'm doing this, that not everyone has access to the same ability of movement as I'm proposing. Like we're exploring our gait, for example, and that's not accessible for everyone. But I'm also really tuned into that there is so much movement and intelligence that's happening inside of our body all the time. To be with that and to start to bring awareness and attention to the movement that's happening, whether it's cellular respiration or the weight of the hemoglobin in the blood that's moving, or what's happening inside the body when our respiratory breath is happening, like the thoracic diaphragm and the pelvic diaphragm. On the inhale, they move toward one another, and on the exhale, they move away from one another. And that feels as important as being aware of our outward movement, how our body is moving in space, but also the directions that we're going, how we move in the marketplace, I'll say. Well, it's an Ifa terminology because they talk about Earth as the marketplace and heaven is home. But the marketplace is really important.
Love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome.
And that's actually one of my questions that I wanted to ask you. As you were speaking, I was thinking, like, I wonder what it's like for you when you're around people your age sometimes. Like, how do they respond? There's just such a knowing, and also a kind of an assuredness in your knowing. And it's like, this is what's true for me. I guess these are corollary questions, but how do other people your age, what is their response to you? And what do you feel like your role in the marketplace is?
Wow. So to answer the first question, which my brain is interpreting as like, how do people my age perceive me? There's a mixed bag with that one. And how I perceive people my age, there's a mixed bag, you know. I definitely feel less judgmental today than ever before about people my age. When I was in high school, I just hated being around people my age. It just felt like a nuisance, which is just such a bad attitude to have about people in general. So I feel like today, what maybe once was annoyance is now heartbreak. Because it feels like disconnectedness, because I try not to engage in certain ways that people my age engage that I can clearly see is not aligned, I think, for humanity, let alone myself. And maybe they feel judged because of that. And where I may have one day in the past judged people, I now don't judge as a means to put down. I judge in a way for myself. I don't want to engage with that. And again, it's not to say that anyone is lesser than because of their process. I honor their process. And sometimes I don't want to engage in certain ways. So in turn, there is a brokenheartedness because I have been judged very severely by people my age my whole life. And so I think like if I have judged in the past, it's been a response to keep myself safe. or to respond like, oh, like this is how you're treating me. I will respond in that similar way. I know now that that's not, and I've known that for a while, that that's just not progressive or doing anything. If anything, it keeps me stagnant. But it's interesting because there are some people my age who look up to me and put me on this pedestal that I don't think I don't want to be on. And maybe in the moment, it feels good to be on that pedestal, or it feels good to be recognized in some way. And it's easy to accept, oh, like you think I'm a leader, like I'll be that for you. And placing yourself in a role that's really not your role, my role, right? It's not my role. It's my role to commune with people my age and to reflect with people my age. But again, I feel unified with people of all ages, so I try not to be hierarchical with it. It can be difficult, but it also can be very beautiful, because when I meet people like in my age group who think similarly to me, it's like sisterhood, it's like brotherhood. And it's much easier to find my people for that reason. I think the more unique all of us are, if we just let ourselves be ourselves entirely, the easier it is to find our tribe. Also, the easier it is to be okay with our differences. And I think because I'm so self-assured, I've had people just maybe who let their insecurities be the response to me, who don't like me because of my reassuredness, who might fear me because I might judge them and because I'm right, quote unquote, or reassured in myself. They don't want that reflection. But what's more pressing than that, and I think the most heartbreaking, is when my reflection is of love, even when I'm being judged. And then the response is that I'm judged even more. That's really heartbreaking, because people are so in fear of love, because people are so in fear of loss, or people are so in fear of being reflected to honestly in love because they don't want to look at themselves. And that's the most heartbreaking, because I'm going to reflect as honestly as I can, as often as I can, which is not all the time. But I do have relationships where the ebb and flow happens. And I think this is the most pure and honest, because it's not always good and it's not always bad. It's the ebb and flow of, well, we really love each other still, and we just don't see eye to eye. Or we really love each other and we're seeing eye to eye in this moment, and we cherish that. And that's true authenticity, because then it means that even though I seem self-assured, or I seem like I know what I'm talking about, or I seem like I know for me what works, so the other person knows for them what works, and we get to learn from one another, regardless of whatever hierarchy we're making in our brain in that moment about each other. That's authenticity. It's not being aligned in everything, but it's still loving one another regardless of the lack of alignment, or the alignment being completely with one another. And that to me is most beautiful. That's most authentic and real. So those are all the experiences I've had with people my age. And I learn a lot from all of them. And then, what is my role in the marketplace? Will you tell me? Because I don't know yet. I'd love to know. What is it? That's what I'm asking the universe. Yeah. What is my role? I mean, I think I've accepted that that role is ever going to change. It's always evolving. And, you know, if we're going to talk about a marketplace and thinking about it from, I guess, a consumeristic perspective, I'm giving a good and someone is, you know, receiving the good and giving me a trade for it. My role in the marketplace is changing per customer. Just for the sake of the
of the analogy.
Of the analogy, yeah.
I see you with your setup, like your booth or whatever it is, and kind of this magician, and it's like, and someone comes up to your stand at the marketplace, and you're like, What would you like me to be now?
Yeah, definitely. And I feel really authentic in that, because in some ways I can be a complete jester. I will give you a song and a dance and a wag of my finger and a wag of my booty tail, and we're having a good time. And that's all that was needed. And sometimes I can go there with you and cry with you and honor your process and honor where you're at. And sometimes I can give you some medicine that doesn't taste great and might be difficult to receive, which I do much less of. And that requires a lot of discernment and letting go of fear, because I want to be liked. My ego wants to be the person that everyone enjoys being around. That's what I want. That's not what always happens, though. So what my role is, it's ever changing. I don't have like one specific gift that I have to give. I'm not a healer in that way. I've had so many careers. I've done so many things, but I don't know where I land. Kind of like a jack of all trades type. And, you know, it's not without its downfall. I don't have a one thing that I get to dedicate myself to and become a lifelong master in. I'm ever changing. And I think that humbles me because it asks me to constantly be in beginner's mind and to let go of my perfectionism. So that's my role, is like letting go of my perfectionism. That's my role, is like letting go of my need to be liked and letting go of my fear of neglect. I guess my role, long story short, is, you know, breaking cycles and helping human evolution go up a few points by breaking the generational cycles, breaking the fear that riddles through my DNA, from my parents, from living the life experience, and pushing towards a space where humans are loving one another and in harmony. That's the role. That's the role I want every human to play, because if every human played that role, the evolutionary process would go in a direction that would benefit not just this world. I actually think it would benefit universally. I think it would benefit our solar system. I think it would benefit, you know, entities outside of our realm. Like it goes into multidimensional processing. So, but we're not there yet. But we will get there. And when we start to get there, I don't want people to be left behind. I want everyone to, you know, come with. And I think inevitably everyone eventually will. But my hope is that we do it sooner than later. Sooner than later. And if not, there will one day be another world and another sun and another try. It will happen again. That's evolution. Cyclical, kind of a mind fuck to grasp. It can get very large and wide and require time. The thought of time makes it difficult to comprehend.
Of course, when people connect, there is a reflection. But there's something about the way you're talking that reminds me of like my 6-year-old self. And all of the poetry I would write was like, I just want to love the world and all of the, it was just like all of this like love for humanity. It's like, we can do this, guys, come on.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if there was anything that you could do just for you without thinking about other people. Maybe an experience or is there something that comes to mind, or a few things?
Wow.
Just for you.
And that's a scary question. Again, like I have no higher education. I'm studying. But when it comes to all the things I do, it is all self-taught, natural, whatever. I believe whatever you want to have happen can happen. I'm fairly interested in becoming a traveling dancer. I feel like it would be really cool to do that and like to represent thick women, Black women in the circus community. I'm not super bendy or stretchy. So there's like a lot that I can't really do, but there is something that speaks through my movement that is unique and that people see and connects with. And really what the messaging and the portaling is love for the world. When I'm in that space, it doesn't matter what you've ever done to me. You are welcome to observe, you know. Doesn't matter what you've ever, you know, done. It's just you're welcome to be feeling the vibration. The vibration is going out through the world and the universe and however far it will travel. And that is something I want to travel and share. I've had dreams of starting a festival-like experience that's completely accessible to all abilities and all sensory type people. So like I love festivals, super fun. I think there's so many awarenesses that happen in them. I think that there are people who find incredible family soul connections. I think it is really a beautiful thing to experience. I think everyone should experience certain festivals in their life at some point. It is shared, authentic expression. It is shared expression without limitation, limitless expression, authentic to the individual, you know, true to the growth of humanity. That's what I would do, really. And just play, run around, you know, be inclusive, have a good time, feed everyone. Like I'm like the host at the party. You guys having a good time? Oh, let's play a game. Have you eaten? Need some water? You know, like I'm making sure everyone's having a good time and having fun. Like that's what I like to do, which includes people. I mean, putting everyone aside and doing the one thing I want to do, it does include people. I just can't do it alone. I don't want to do it alone, you know. I realized in that moment, like selfishness usually is a reflection that you have with people where you're taking. When you put everyone aside, it's no longer selfish, it's completely selfless because the only thing that's being focused on is the self. And when you're helping the one thing you can control, which is yourself, or providing for the one thing that you are connected to truly more than anything, which is the self, you are helping humanity. It's like love for all people. Remember, you're a part of all people. And like that was something I had heard that really sat with me because I forgot in that moment. And when I said I love people, someone looked at me and they said, you are people. And I went, oh shit. I am people. Dang. It's my responsibility more than anything to love myself. That way that love can spread to others. But it can't spread properly if there's none in yourself, or you're low. You know, you're low on it, or you're tired, or you're in lack. If you're in lack, I mean, you can still love people, but sometimes it's inauthentic, or sometimes it's a drag, or sometimes it's robotic. And while it might make someone else feel good, it may do nothing for you or drain you.
Yeah.
That's a positive and a negative, which mathematically makes a negative.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about reciprocity, and it's a full circle. It's like, it's just as important to receive as it is to give. One of my questions for you was, because I remember we talked about this, why is rest important?
Oh, man. Rest is so important. Yeah. I learned that rest is important the hardest way you could learn, which was being in bed rest for over a year. I got a cancer diagnosis when I was 18 years old, 2 weeks after high school. And my life prior to that was total grind culture, total, like, get yourself into college, do all extra accreditation, do all the extracurriculars, have a job. I paid, my way through a lot of things. Not saying I wasn't provided for, but I had a job all through high school, starting in middle school. Like, it just was constant go, go, go. having a job, plus doing full-time sports, plus doing full-time school, you know, plus homework, plus going into the military at the time. It's just a non-stop machine.
Wait, you went to the military?
I was supposed to. I had a ship out date. I had already done MEPS, which is where they make sure that you have like the physical ability, the strength, all this like checking up on you, drawing your blood, testing your eyes, all these things, making sure that you're good to get into the military. I passed that and had a ship out date and had already signed myself away to be a corpsman for the Navy. And that didn't happen because I had cancer. Thankfully, I'm so thankful I'm not in the military. Because I would have been still in the military during this current presidency, and that's not something I'd want to be a part of. And, you know, originally I was going into the military not to be, I mean, I was going as a corpsman. I wanted to help people who were injured. I didn't want to go and hurt anyone per se. But there was something honorable about the way that it's marketed for the greater cause, which I still live in that mind frame. It's just applied very differently now. I was going to pay for my college and pay for this and that, and like, you know, money wasn't going to be an issue, which is an ongoing stress growing up as a child. And I was never homeless. I always had food on the table. I always had a home over my head, so it wasn't so stressful. It wasn't a huge trauma, but it was enough of a stress that I wanted to set myself up well. And so then there was motivation in that way. And yeah, I was going into the military. I wanted to play basketball for the Navy. I wanted to be badass, strong. And I'm still all those things today. I'm very strong physically. I do a lot of resistance training and feel pretty badass in like the things I do. I feel like badass is like something that my friends tell me I am all the time, you know. It's fun. But I didn't have to go into the military to prove that of myself. And then I got cancer, and rest was the only thing I could do. I just, you know, I laid for days at a time. At some point I couldn't walk. And had I had proper rest prior to having gotten cancer, I may have never gotten cancer. Rest is rehabilitation for the brain and the body. Rest is integrative processing for your spirit to bring in the information it's acquired into the mind and body. Rest is healing. It's health. Yes, it's important to move. It's important to have balance. Just as it's important to exercise, it's important to rest. Just as it's important to have beautiful, awesome experiences, it is important to have grief. It's important to have balance and rest. And I think why the messaging of rest, at least in Neo-Day spirituality, is being shouted so loud is because we live in a culture that is anti-rest culture. And because of lack of rest, and amongst other things, I got cancer. So of course I'm going to scream to the rooftops, rest. It's so important. Rest prevents injury if you're an athlete. Rest is super important. Rest is important for when you're emotionally not feeling well. Rest is the healer of emotional unrest or unwellness. Depression, it's rest, it's deep rest. It's the human response to mentally not being able to process.
Totally.
Rest is really important.
That's such an interesting frame because I've tracked my ups and downs and I know myself, and when I'm going and I'm kind of in this state of like, I can do everything. I have the capacity to do everything and I can do it all right now.
Yes.
And then inevitably there's a crash and then the depression sets in and I'm with that depression and I'm like, oh, okay. Well.
Yeah. But never mind.
Yeah. But sometimes it's a relief.
Yes.
It's almost like it's not, especially if it's not like really heavy, really weighted depression. If it's kind of just
above,
above, and I'm like, I kind of just have the blues right now, and that's all right.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Depression is definitely something I've struggled with after doing chemotherapy. Obviously, I had like incredibly deep spurts of depression, like growing up, because your hormones are crazy, and when you live in like highly stressful environments, plus your hormones are crazy, like depression is just inevitable for middle schoolers, I feel like, in certain circumstances. And so as an adult, when I became more in control of my mental state, I started meditating at like age 16, which was profound for me. Incredibly simple, but incredibly profound. I felt really strong-minded, and I did not suffer from depression. I did a really good job with my anxiety. And then, you know, having done chemo, it just reset my brain into a point of like unsettledness, lack of rest, because I then had to process this 3-year-long chemotherapy bout that I had that just stripped me of my identity in being healthy, because I was skin and bones, stripped me of my identity of being beautiful because I was yellow and bald, stripped me of my, you know, ability to do things physically, to be strong, to have fun, to have positive mental state of being. And, you know, through that came like a lot of depression and fear I would go back there. And not knowing if I'd ever get back to health. I really didn't know. I really thought I was like kind of stuck like that for a while. And I thought it would take much longer than what it took. And I'm thankful to psychedelics for their aid in my healing process mentally. I had read different articles about studies done in Oregon with cancer patients and people who were so ill that they were for sure going to die. They had been taking psilocybin and they had been reporting like really amazing reports. And I thought to myself, okay, like I'm willing to give this a try for this reason. I was very careful about psychedelics, and I was brought up in religion, so I was super anti-drugs. And then I did tons of drugs while I was on chemo because that's what you're prescribed, you know. It's the same thing. And actually, it's not the same. I think mushrooms are much better. I don't mean it in that way. I mean in the sense of it is a change of state of mind that I was engaging in regardless for 3 years. And I thought, what's another one, you know? But this one just brought me back to life. I went, oh, I can heal. I went, oh, there's still a soul in me. That's cool. I didn't realize. Or, oh, like I can still have fun. It was the first time that my brain started to believe that I would recover from cancer. And so I'm really thankful to these beautiful nuggets of candy that the earth provides for us for free, that you can find and pick and eat and commune in spirituality in a way that's hopeful. So that was another experience I had with psychedelics that was helpful. Rest. Integrating that process. So it's like, it's those things. That's where rest is important. How are you going to integrate this crazy trip you had? Because some people just go off the rails and trip and trip and trip and do nothing about it and don't care. And that's abusive in my mind, you know. Rest balances it out. Rest brings it from the multidimensional realm that you're touching in with into the 3-dimensional realm so you can apply it to your life. So rest is healing.
Yeah.
I think it's so important.
Yeah. My friend characterizes the culture that we're in as addiction to colonial pace. And
yeah,
I think the addiction word is interesting because the little that I know about addiction, or, I mean, I've had firsthand experiences with people close to me who are identify themselves as addicts. But I think humans, we all experience addiction on some level. And one aspect of addiction is numbing, going back to the conversation around trauma. So to numb whatever it is that we just maybe don't have the capacity to be with. So I think the busyness and like the need to like, or being identified with like, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is my role in life. If I don't make this happen, everything's going to fall apart. Yeah, sometimes I don't necessarily know how to reconcile that for people. I know I don't have to do that for people, but I guess for myself as well, I feel that this pressure, because I kind of think of myself as a late bloomer. And I've been gathering information and researching things in my own way. I just finally feel at 45 ready to offer things out in the world. It's starting to happen. And there's like this fear of, if I don't put this out here now, I'm gonna miss my time.
Yeah, that feeling is very real.
Yeah.
There's a couple things that popped up in my mind. Going back to rest is relieving yourself of the feeling of having to be something in that moment, or like centeredness, or like meditation, or like, you know, that's a very common meditative practice that you can find on YouTube. It's just doing nothing.
Yeah.
Nothingness.
Yeah.
It's relieving yourself of the need to be or have to do something because you're feeling like it's equating to your value, or you're feeling like it's equating to something, a reflection of yourself. Something that you and I talked about just moments ago is like the teacher of death. It tells us that we're not promised tomorrow, but it doesn't ask us to speed up our process necessarily and to get it all done in a moment's time. It centers us into the now. I think if we try to speed up and get everything done right away, it means we're chasing death and we're trying to get to the end. But if we're completely nonchalant and doing absolutely nothing and not fearing death in a healthy way, there's not much progress. So it's this balance, and that's different for everyone. As I would say to you, if we were sitting and having coffee, and let's say you came to me as my friend and you were like, I'm feeling stressed about this thing, I'm not getting it done. I would say to you, I trust that in perfect timing, what needs to come through you will come through. Because you're willing. It's just the willingness alone. Just the desire to get it out alone means that what does and will is in perfect timing may not be exactly the way you planned. But it is. I heard some wise words from my last partner's mom, Moo, who's like a mother figure to me. She was talking about theater, and she said this applies to all life as well, not just theater. Whatever you're creating in your brain for your set design and how the show is going to go, if you can hit the 60% mark of how you envisioned it, then that is an A+ successful play. It's true for life as well.
Will you describe the landscape of your heart?
My jaw is dropped right now. I'm in awe of this beautiful question, and this is a question I want to pocket because I have a few people I want to ask this question. That's so cool. The landscape of my heart. Oh man, okay, this is it. It's quite a large, like, grandfather mountain with like the deepest green, evergreen trees, and just a palpable smell of pine and gorgeously large pine cones all over, lush with life, and very like misty with like fog. It seems kind of like dark and eerie, but when you're in it, you can tell it's just like a magical place full of little mushroom fairies and brownies and little gnomes running around in their secret hideaway villages and quite wild, like quite a wild place with large predators, but also incredibly serene at the same time and like incredibly safe. And the veil is like really thin there where you can speak really clearly with the ancestors that have lived there. And the mountain just vibrates such a low and long vibration that you can hear it speak.
This is so beautiful.
It comes from Mount Rainier. It's like very much where my heart is at, is the mountain in Washington where I grew up.
What is your prayer?
Ooh. I mean, immediately when I think of prayer, I think of me falling to my knees and like shouting as loud as I can, as far as I can. Just like hoping to be heard by the greater power, the creator, to heed my call. And that's just like, right now there's no words. It's just like yelling. It's like what I'm seeing, and I just feel like this yearning happening. And it's difficult because it's like the desire to eradicate the suffering that's happening, even though this whole conversation was talking about the necessity of suffering. Yeah, I mean, like, my prayer is like to protect those who are in danger and to feed the hungry and to bring peace to the lost. Like, I feel like scripture, like Christian scripture, really comes up in my mind with this prayer. It's like this crying out to a bigger entity to come and save, in a way. And it's like not that at the same time. How do I even put that into words? My prayer is like, in a perfect world, that we experience the level of satisfaction and awesomeness in play without the deep-rooted trauma that exists today. Like, really eradicating, maybe not challenge or difficulty, but like things that are really evil. The eradication of things that are evil. Just there's absolutely like nothing that can be gained from it. Which is weird, because then my brain is like, well, there are humans that have had the strength to gain things from those things. And I'm like, well, I don't want them around still, though. Like, truly rooted in complete drainage, I guess. Or, like, you know, I don't know. Like, that's so weird. It's like the prayer that I'm having is just like, it's not of this dimension. That's the thing. It's like, does my prayer have to like follow the 3-dimensional code of conduct?
Absolutely not.
I'm such a realist in that way. Because when I pray, I think about like spell casting. Like, that's what prayer is, in my opinion. Like, it's spell casting. You can take different cultures and apply them, and they're all pretty much the same manifestation. And I'm very careful about how I ask for things. Because 1, I want them to come true. And 2, I want them to come true for the benefit. So sometimes you have to be, it's like genie in a bottle. It's like when I rub that bottle and I set that intention or that prayer, that genie's not going to be able to trick me. Because I know exactly what it is, you know? So this is the kind of process I go through before I set the prayer out. Because it's really, I think it's important to be, 1, pure-hearted in your prayer, and 2, to be accurate. But maybe that's just limiting. Because I don't see anything wrong, like, looking at someone else's process. If someone were to just be fairly whimsical and pray to the nines for these beautiful things, like, there's nothing wrong with that. I kind of don't have a prayer. Such a roundabout way to say, like, it's kind of hard for my brain to perceive that right now.
I loved the process. I loved the journey that you just took us on.
I speak in parentheticals a lot. Well, my friend Gina and she lives here in Ojai. She's incredible. Something that we really touch on is when we're speaking with one another, we already know that whatever we're saying in that moment does not mean that the other thing is not true or that the opposing idea is not true. Everything I'm saying is for the moment right now, and it does not mean that the opposing idea is not true. This is the dichotomy. Right now, we're talking about rest. That's really important. But it doesn't mean that work is not. Right now, we're talking about how beautiful the sun is, which is, yes, very true, but it doesn't mean that the moon is not. Talking about how important vitamin D is and being outside during the daytime, but it doesn't mean that being outside during the nighttime is not, It just means that in this moment, we're honoring for what is. And that's a hard thing about, like, spiritual teaching, because you have leaders who say things that are so self-assured, as we're talking about, just self-assurance and talking about, like, the reality of what is in that moment. But it doesn't mean that they're saying that they know all and that this is the only truth. It's just what's happening in that moment.
Right.
And there are so many things that are completely opposing in ideas that are 100% true.
Thank you for listening today. For more information about Ze'Lee Sparks, you can go to the show notes or to the website, anyplacepodcasts.com. This episode was recorded on the traditional homelands of the Chumash people.